slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't.
Hey team, hope you're all doing well. Today's discussion, I wanted to go over the question of, is there a perfect marathon training plan? And I mean, it's a great question. A lot of athletes around the world are always seeking a legitimate training plan to help them set a new personal best. I don't necessarily think there's a perfect training plan out there, perfect marathon training plan out there, because there's always something that can be tweaked or adjusted with as you're preparing for your races. And I think when you think of a marathon training plan, at least even the ones that I've created myself, they're a guide. They're not like etched in stone. Like you have to follow exactly this volume every single week, and you have to hit these specific splits every single week, or you're not going to hit that goal that you're aiming for. Maybe you're trying to break like 3 hours and 25 minutes for the marathon. The workouts in these training plans, for a marathon training plan, at least the ones that I've created myself, I do have one day of the week is a speed training workout. It can be in the example of hill repetitions. It can be repeat 400s, repeat 1000s on the track, repeat 1200s, repeat 1600s, workouts like that. One day of the week is a tempo run. If you're earlier on in your build up, especially for a marathon runner, a perfect marathon training plan should have a tempo run strategically placed within the week. You have to first focus on being very patient with those tempo runs as well. I mean, you may have a really hard time, even as a marathoner, holding goal marathon race pace or running slightly slower, maybe like 10 seconds slower than goal marathon race pace for, say, 2 to 3 miles in the first few weeks of your build-up. Just be patient with yourself with those tempo runs, because even at my peak, I had a hard time holding 3 miles for a tempo run. And then as I got very fit and as I progressed throughout my training blocks, I would branch that tempo run out to around between 10 to 12 to 14 miles, around that range, 10 to 14 miles. And again, if you're running for that amount of time at your anaerobic threshold, you are definitely going to build a great deal of stamina and strength in your marathon race. So a perfect marathon training plan needs to encompass the speed training workout, training at your VO2 max, running around 95 to up to 100% of your maximum oxygen uptake. You're running so fast, you can't clear lactic acid faster than it's building up. So naturally, we have to slow down, or we have to take those breaks between those repetitions on the track, or if you're on the roads and you're doing, say, like repeat 800s, or you're doing repeat miles, you're running so fast, you can only hold that effort for a matter of seconds or several minutes. And then we have to stop, take a break, wait till the lactate levels are back lower down. Our heart rate is back down to around 120 or below before we attack the next interval on the roads, or if you're doing it on the track. A good guide, if you're basing it off heart rate, is to wait until your heart rate is back down to around 120 beats per minute before you start your next interval. So if your marathon training plan says, okay, you're gonna be doing 3 3,200 meter repetitions on the track, and you finish your first 3,200 meter, and it says you have between a 5-minute recovery between each one of your 3,200 meter repetitions. When it comes to 5 minutes, if your heart rate is still 140 beats per minute, you need to give yourself a little bit more time until you're back down to around 120. That's a general rule for heart rate. At least when I was in college, my collegiate coach, Jack Hazen, would focus on that. He would say, wait till your heart rate's back down to about 120 before we start the next rep. Granted, there's going to be times where you're within that range. If you're 125, you're around that range, you're about ready to go for the next one. So a perfect marathon training plan needs to encompass both speed, stamina, where you're working on your tempo runs, working on running at your anaerobic threshold, which is slightly faster than tempo effort, but they're both relatively, give or take, a few seconds from each other in terms of effort. And then the long run. If you're training for a marathon and you're trying to set a new personal record, long runs run very easy for long periods of time are very important. So learning how to run very easy and extending the duration of your long run is very important. Like if you've been having a difficult time finishing the marathon or finishing the marathon in your specific goal time, a perfect marathon training plan, if there is one, I don't think there necessarily is one, because again, there's always things we can adjust, needs to also focus on longer long runs. If your longest long run and you're training for a marathon is say 14 miles, it's too short. You're training for a 26.2 mile race, or 42.2 kilometers. So you have to learn how to at least get out to around 32 kilometers for your long run, for around, or 20 miles, around there. My longest long run I've ever did in my life was a 30 miler at Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky. It was a rolling hills long run. I went out 15, came back 15, averaging 6:06 per mile for that 30 mile long run. And that was about 4 or 5 weeks out from the 2011 Monumental Indianapolis Marathon. Okay. I don't think that you need to run that far or that fast. I think the most important thing is find what works best for you. Find that distance. Like if you're training for a marathon, I think the sweet spot is anywhere from around 17 miles to around 22 miles for a long run for most athletes. Around that range is solid. The faster you're trying to run, the more specific, the more technical it gets, because again, you have to manage high levels of lactic acid. You have to manage long periods of time being in discomfort. So that's why I always tell runners that are watching my videos or that choose to invest in one of my courses or my training plans, be patient with this process. The marathon is not easy. No event is easy. I mean, if you're training for a 3K indoors, or you're training for a 1,500 meter outdoors, 800, half marathon, all these distances in their own right are extremely difficult and challenging. But the marathon is specifically, because it's so long, and because you're trying to hold a specific pace. For most runners, they're trying to, maybe if they're trying to break 4 hours for the marathon, what is that, 4:16 per kilometer or 9:09 per mile. Or if you're trying to break 3 hours for the marathon, 6:52 mile pace, or 4:16 per kilometer. Actually, that breaking 4 hours, that's 5:41 per kilometer and 9:09 mile pace. But again, whatever pace you're trying to hold, you have to, a perfect marathon training plan needs to make sure that you're getting outside of your comfort zone, both in volume, but also not focusing so much attention on just easy running. Of course, it's very important. You have to slow down on those recovery days. You can push yourself hard anaerobically on the track or on the roads, whether it's doing tempo runs, whether it's hill repetitions. But there's only so much you can continue to push yourself hard, and if you don't allot that 48 hours of recovery after a very hard effort, you're not going to adapt effectively. You're not going to, you run the risk of getting injured, pushing yourself so hard that you pull a muscle or a tendon or something like that, or worse, you have to have a surgery. So you have a perfect marathon training plan needs to balance both the volume as well as the intensity. A perfect marathon training plan has to focus also on the taper phase, where you keep your volume high, you keep your intensity high up until, in my opinion, what's worked best for me is 10 days out from your goal race, once you get to 10 days out, you should drop your volume around 60% of what you were doing the previous week. Okay? Your intensity should be lowered somewhat as well, around 30%. And then if you're training for, especially in this case for the marathon, I would do a 3-mile run, 1 mile warm up, or 5 kilometers, so about 1.6 kilometer warm up. Trying to make sure not to say miles as much, because I know a lot of you aren't in the States and focus more on kilometers. So about like a 1.6 kilometer warm up, run 5 kilometers at goal marathon race pace, 1.6 kilometer cool down. If you're in the States, 1 mile warm up, about 3 miles at goal marathon race pace, 1 mile cool down. That should be your last workout, main workout you should do 4 days out from your goal marathon. And then those 3 days, 2+ days, whatever, after you do that specific goal race pace workout, should relatively just be easy jogging or off. Okay, you want to go in rested, but you don't want to go in feeling tired and lethargic. A lot of times, if you start dropping your intensity and volume too far out in a marathon training plan, at least in my experience, I haven't always felt great. Okay, I keep my volume and my intensity high up until just several days before a goal race. You want to make sure to continue to remind your legs and your mind of what you've been training them to do going into a race. And most importantly, a perfect marathon training plan, if there were one, has to emphasize not only strength training, doing strength training once per week, and that can be in the way of just doing sit-ups and push-ups at home if you don't want to go to the gym, doing repeat hill repetitions, and I know that's also part of speed training, but running over hills, whether you're doing reps up a hill or you're running over hillier terrain, that in and of itself is an example of strength training. You're stressing different energy systems of the body that you're not going to stress by just running easy, and you're working different muscle groups that you're going to be utilizing doing those types of hill reps, where you're really pumping your legs and you're pumping your arms. You have to lift your knees higher. You have to stress the hip flexors of your body as well, to an extent that you're just not going to do by running easy and relaxed. So strength training, proper taper, mental training, mental rehearsal, just 5 to 10 minutes daily, visualizing yourself getting across the finish line in your goal marathon race time that you're aiming for. So is there a perfect marathon training plan? I don't think there is, because I think, like I mentioned, there's always something we can adjust and tweak a little bit. But just if you're watching this video and you're thinking about getting a Run, Dream, Achieve marathon training plan, or you're thinking about getting one of the courses, things like that, just know you don't have to follow this plan exactly. Okay? Get close to the workouts within a few seconds. As far as volume, if you feel like it's too high, make some adjustments along the way as you feel, as needed. Okay, if you're feeling stressed and the plan says you need to be running 90 kilometers a week, adjust that. Maybe run 76 kilometers or 77 kilometers. Adjust it as needed. So you want to make sure that first you're following how you feel as an athlete, and making sure that you get to that marathon healthy and not feel so stressed out like I gotta hit these reps or I'm not gonna hit this time. Just get close to the efforts. The most important thing is the effort, the workout. Okay, you don't necessarily have to hit the exact splits, but give it your best shot and do the best you can. So thanks so much for watching this video. Check out the resources below if you're looking for a training plan or you're wanting to be coached by me, or if you're looking for a running course. There's a lot of resources on RunDreamAchieve.com, the website, or below these videos that'll help you. So thank you so much for your support, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.